the COVID-19 vaccines. For some, an incredible feat of modern medicine. For others, a terrifying combination of bodily violation and unknown repercussions. In this video, I will promote the former and combat the latter. I will explain why these vaccines are an extraordinary accomplishment and something that should be capitalized on by all who are able to, as well as clarify misconceptions surrounding their development and effects. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, or avoid mentioning the gory details. I'm going to say it up front. COVID-19 has killed 777,000 United States citizens since March 2nd of 2020. That number might be challenging to wrap one's head around, so let's put it into perspective. The United States Census estimates that Kalamazoo County's population in 2019 was around 265,000. That means that not one, not two, but almost 3 Kalamazoo County worth of people have died in the United States as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. COVID-19 is clearly a threat to Americans, whether people like to believe it or not. It is dangerous and still very present in the United States and globally. But luckily, we have been given a tool to combat this virus, something that, if used properly, could eradicate COVID-19 in its entirety. Yet, some people continue to refuse this tool against their own self-interest. That tool, the COVID-19 vaccine. There are many reasons as to why some refuse to get vaccinated, one valid excuse being a severe allergic reaction to the vaccine, but for those who choose not to get vaccinated because they just don't want to, I hope this video helps to bring a new understanding and set us on the right track to finally beat COVID-19. To begin, let's take a closer look at how the COVID-19 vaccines were developed and how they work. Step 1. Laboratory development. Scientists have been aware of coronaviruses, the type of viruses that COVID-19 is derived from, for quite some time. So for this step, where scientists study the virus and develop a vaccine in the lab, researchers already had a basis of information to build off of, dramatically shortening the time it would take to produce a vaccine. Step 2. Clinical trials. Next, the vaccine goes through 3 phases of clinical trials on humans. Phase 1 involves a small group of people who get the vaccine and are closely monitored. Phase 2 expands the trial of people to people who have different characteristics, like age, ethnicity, and physical well-being. This phase is targeted at a group of people that are representative of the population that the vaccine is intended for. Then comes Phase 3, where the vaccine is given to thousands of people and tested on a larger scale for efficacy and safety. Next comes Step 3, authorization or approval. For a vaccine to be widely administered to the public, the FDA must either grant it an emergency use authorization or full approval. The Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson vaccines all received an emergency use authorization, and the Pfizer vaccine has since received a full FDA stamp of approval, meeting the FDA standards for safety, effectiveness, and manufacturing quality. Step 4. Manufacturing and distribution. Finally, the vaccine is mass-produced and distributed to the masses. Traditionally, a vaccine would go through all of these steps one at a time, so as not to waste resources. However, thanks to funding from the US government and the immense threat of COVID-19, this was no longer an issue. The extra funding allowed for companies to conduct trials with overlapping timeframes as well as begin manufacturing prior to FDA authorization or approval. These sped-up processes may give off the impression that corners were cut. However, a more accurate metaphor would be comparing the process to a group project in which each person does their part, followed by an editing check. Now that we have established the processes that went into developing the COVID-19 vaccines, let's quickly go over how the vaccines work. Each of the vaccines that I listed earlier are mRNA vaccines. How these vaccines work is complicated, but can be broken down into a few simple steps that make it a lot easier to understand. The CDC explains it best. First, COVID-19 mRNA vaccines are given in the upper arm muscle. The mRNA will enter the muscle cells and instruct the cells' machinery to produce a harmless piece of what is called the spike protein. The spike protein is found on the surface of the virus that causes COVID-19. After the protein piece is made, our cells break down the mRNA and remove it. Next, our cells display the spike protein piece on their surface. Our immune system recognizes that the protein doesn't belong there. This triggers our immune system to produce antibodies and activate other immune cells to fight off what it thinks is an infection. This is what your body might do to fight off the infection if you actually got sick with COVID-19. At the end of the process, our bodies have learned how to protect against future infection from the virus that causes COVID-19. The benefit from COVID-19 mRNA vaccines, like all vaccines, is that those vaccinated gain this protection without ever having to risk the potentially serious consequences of getting sick with COVID-19. So, contrary to some conspiracy theories, the COVID-19 vaccines do not rewrite your DNA. They simply give your immune system the tools to recognize COVID-19 in the future and immediately begin producing antibodies. Now that we have established that COVID-19 vaccines are safe, it is time to explain that they are also effective. Both the clinical trials and studies conducted following vaccination of the populace showed that people who are vaccinated are less likely to contract COVID-19, less likely to be hospitalized as a result, and less likely to die from COVID-19. A more recent study conducted in Texas found that unvaccinated people are 40 times as likely to die of COVID as those fully vaccinated. So let's take a step back and weigh the positives of getting the COVID-19 vaccine against the negatives. On the negative side, we have losing time. You have to sit and wait 15 minutes after getting the shot. Soreness in the arm, and possibly other parts of the body for a few days following the shot. And the possibility of some cold or flu-like symptoms for a couple of days following the shot. On the positive side, we have protecting yourself from the dangerous symptoms of COVID-19, a disease with long-term side effects that we know of and potentially more that are still unknown. From where I'm standing, the positives far outweigh the negatives, and I hope that this video helped you to arrive at the same conclusion. Thanks for watching.